When Northwestern pioneers incorporated this territory as the state of Montana, they knew that they had created a state filled with obstructions, obstacles, barriers and boundaries, precipices and partitions. Montana, after all, means mountain. Settlers here quickly learned that both the lay of the land and the cut of the culture called for fierce fortitude and legendary loyalty in a territory where freedom hovers like the big sky over a sculptured menagerie of obstacles. Since Seventh-day Adventists first came to this state, we have not been spared the natural inconveniences of Montana life. Churches and groups of believers have felt profoundly isolated by great distances, small numbers, sparseness of pastoral resources, and populations which seem to show little inclination to investigate new spiritual information. And as a conference of churches, we face our own special challenges. Financial challenges remain and must be dealt with. Our academy and its financial base must be re-examined, in fact. There are so many mountains that it would be tempting to focus so intently on obstacles that we forget how greatly God has blessed us during the past 3 years. Mountains of impossibility, by God's grace, have become monuments of achievement. God expects us today to turn mountains into monuments. Like many small congregations in eastern Montana, the Miles City members face what appeared to be a life-threatening obstacle to their church's survival near the beginning of this triennium.
When Jane and I first came into the district at the end of 1990, beginning of 1991, we were very warmly welcomed, and as we began getting to know the people and taking a look at a few things, we realized that on the books here in Miles City we had right around 76, 77 members, but our average attendance on Sabbath was right between 12 and 15. And we began to realize if that kind of a trend continued, the picture would not really look very good. It wouldn't be plateauing, but it would just take a nosedive, and within a few years we'd be looking at possibly disbanding or having to close the church.
I've been here about 6.5 years and been involved with the audiovisual equipment and elder and other positions in the church. And I can remember when Pastor Mike came that the attendance was pretty low.
The story of the Miles City Church is really a miracle. There's really no other way to explain it. And really the turnaround began when we decided we wanted to do more of a variety of programs for this community of about 10,000 people.
In order to reach out to the community, we've done a few vacation Bible schools. We've been here for 5 years. We did the first vacation Bible school the first year we were here, and it had been about 13 years since we'd done one. And these are my two little helpers, Sheila and Seth, that helped with the crafts. I'm the craft teacher mostly, and I had them try out some of the crafts to make sure that the little ones would be able to do it at certain levels.
At Thanksgiving, we deliver cheer plates, cookies and goodies for people that need some cheer. And then at Christmas time, we help out with the Empty Stocking program, give donations for any families or people that need something specific. And then the latest thing that we've been working on is the Net 95, where we've been meeting some people that we've met in the community before.
Dale brought me to this Discovery and Prophecy, and it's just been a heartwarming, eye-opening experience for me, and it's changed a lot in our lives, and we thank God for that.
Moved to Miles City. I've been an Adventist for several years and been in and out of the church and found a lot of fellowship here. And at the beginning of the Discovery and Prophecy series, I was anointed for the seizure activity I'd had. The doctors hadn't been able to help me. And the anointing service brought instant healing and relief. I've had no trouble with the seizures. I'm off medication, and I'm going to be rebaptized this coming Sabbath.
With attendance, when the pastor first came down around 12, we've been recently running between 35 and 40 people in attendance. Net 95 has provided some additional blessings with the satellite equipment that the Lord has provided us and has increased our attendance as well. We are currently looking at putting in a Three Angels broadcasting station in the very near future, and this is really going to provide some wonderful opportunities for Miles City Church.
The Miles City Church, faced by an insurmountable mountain of obstacles, has turned that mountain into a monument of achievement. And we expect very soon we'll cap that monument with a television antenna tower for the glory of God. The Libby Adventist Elementary School faced a mountain of problems 3 years ago. It was known in the community as a school exclusively for children of Adventist parents. With only 3 students and prospects of closure, the mountain seemed insurmountable.
Things happened that the economy kind of sagged. And we had the dam up here, and they hired a lot of men. We had a mill that hired 1,000, and we had another mine up here that hired somewhere around 500. And when things started to deteriorate in employment, why, we lost a lot of our members.
And they were just about ready to close our school, but we had a couple of members in our church that went over and talked to the conference and said, look, we need that school, and we're gonna build it up. You watch. Anyway, they were pretty good salesmen, and they made a good impression on the conference, and they said, well, if you think so, we'll help you out.
And so we took it to the Lord in prayer. That was number one, and let God take over from there.
We have actively pursued non-Adventist students in this community to teach them and give them the opportunity to have a Christ-centered education. The way that we do this is uphold our Adventist beliefs, which are biblically based, to a high standard which we require and ask all people to meet, but not to conform to. The way that we do this, in my classroom, we have probably 4 or 5 different churches represented with varying beliefs. And when we discuss or talk about different beliefs that are present, we go to the Bible and prove them, and there might be arguments, there might be high discussions on them, but our Adventist kids are able to prove to others that our beliefs are biblically based, and the others, it might put question in their mind, hey, maybe our beliefs aren't so truly founded, but it makes our Adventist kids, even though they're a smaller percentage than the non-Adventists in our classroom, it makes them stronger. And even though we might all disagree when we're done, we've spread the little seed within their mind and hopefully brought them closer to Christ in the end. And it seems to be working really well for us here in Libby, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Hi, Marie. My daughter's been going here for 2 years to the Adventist school, and we aren't Adventists, but we go to Rivers of Living Water Church, and I've been sending her here because it's a really good Christian school. She's real happy with it, and I'm real pleased with the curriculum. She's not only learning her 3 R's, but she's also learning scriptures, and the songs are Christian, and she seems to be doing really well. There's 2 other families from my church that are also sending their children here.
Working here at the Venture Motor Inn in Libby gives me a lot of opportunity to share about the Libby Seventh-day Adventist School where my 2 daughters attend. I have customers that come in, and I have them ask about my children, and I tell them I have 2 daughters that are attending the Libby Seventh-day Adventist School, and what a blessing it's been the last couple of years and how it's grown. And they're looking for other alternatives in this community because there is no other Christian school. So there's quite a bit of churches that have come together and have put their kids in the school and have volunteered and gotten involved. And there's a lot of interest around the community, and it gives me an opportunity when I work here to be able to tell them about it. And I currently attend the Foursquare Church. There's 4 other families in our church that also have children in the school, and 5 other churches besides the Seventh-day Adventists involved in the school, which is a witness to the community that the Christian families that aren't in the same church can come together and concentrate on our children, and what's important is their education.
Next year, we're hoping even for more students. Now, most of them aren't going to be Seventh-day Adventists. The increase, again, is going to be coming from non-Adventists. But I truly believe that when you reach children, you're going to reach their parents. And when we reach out and share God's love, it's going to make a difference in what people want in their lives. And I think it's going to bring an increase even to membership in this church.
This school faced the mountain of how to bring Christian education to a small community of believers, and from that mountain has made a monument in the community by sharing the benefits of its philosophy with others and making the school the church's centerpiece of evangelism. But as a brief interlude in this report, we travel to Nampa, Idaho for a look at Montana Conference Transportation Headquarters. The company is wholly owned by the conference and faces excellent prospects ahead, but the trauma of expansion and possible corporate realignment still must be dealt with, as you will hear in a separate report. But from its beginning, more than 15 years ago, even as it has funneled more than $1 million to Christian education in the conference, its mission has been clear.
Montana Conference Transportation started in 1977 with a single tractor and an initial investment of approximately $30,000. Today we are operating 10 tractors. The construction of our Nampa facility was made necessary by the continued growth of the transportation department. We now have a 26,000 square foot warehouse, shop, and office complex with access mini storage right next door with approximately 30,000 square feet. The revenue from the mini storages, when at 95% capacity, should cover the debt service on both buildings. With the capacity of our new facility and our 5-year business plan, we're confident that by the year 2000, this industry has the potential of bringing Montana Conference $1 million a year in profits.
Ron and his team are to be commended for their innovation and highly developed skills in this competitive business. They have dedicated their competent skills to this church, and the Montana Conference values that commitment. But there's another side to this business we often forget as we talk about diesel and dollars, construction and contracts. It's the ministry of these Adventist people as they crisscross the continent as representatives for their faith.
This is Travis. He's my partner. I get to take him on trips with me sometimes, and we just like to run down the road and talk on the CB and get a chance to meet new people. They ask us many questions about what we do.
Well, we're breaking for that Montana Conference. You got your radio on?
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the church doing in the trucking business?
I guess you'd have to say that we actually strive to help keep one of our boarding schools open by the operation of these trucks.
I guess as a church company, you don't have to pay the taxes that the rest of us have to pay, huh?
No, that's not true. We have to license our equipment, buy permits, pay the road tax, you know, all the fuel tax, everything just like all the other trucks on the highway today. We have to be as competitive as anyone else is on our prices. We turn our profits over, you know, to the Montana Conference, and they do with it as they see fit.
Okay, well, as far as my answer, I'll be getting off here. You have a good day.
Okay, well, I hope you have a good day, and the Lord bless you. Bye-bye. A lot of times they ask about what we do, especially about our Sabbath. And I always try and tell them that on Sabbath, we park the truck, and the truck goes nowhere. And that's one way we show our love for our Lord. It always makes me feel good to think that sometimes these people, their only connection with what we believe is through me and through the trucks. I think working for the Montana Conference has given me the chance to, I guess, be the missionary that I'm not by being overseas. Of course, I get to come home once in a while, and in that respect, I'm probably just like the missionaries that are overseas.
As we consider the future of this fine organization, it's good to bear in mind that these men are not only drivers, they're also missionaries. As this past triennium dawned, the Bozeman Church on the conference office grounds faced a crucial obstacle. As in many of its sister churches in this conference, Bozeman members faced the reality that many of them were getting along in years and were feeling more and more isolated as their numbers dwindled. By the early 1990s, attendance had declined to an average of 35 each week, and the decline seemed unstoppable.
I was not in favor of closing this congregation, mainly because when you close a congregation, it's difficult to reestablish. Maybe it was too much like family to the point that some of those that came and attempted to associate with us were frozen out. I'm not sure that that happened, but it was very possible that it did happen.
David and I were very newly married, and my grandmother, who was a recent member, had invited us to come to the Bozeman Church. And I remember that our first impression was that if you weren't 70 years old, you didn't come to this church. We'd never been to an Adventist church and really didn't know anything about Adventism. So it wasn't doctrines or truth that attracted us to the church. It was the people. We went to the Sabbath school class, and immediately here is this group of diverse people, and they all are so knowledgeable about the Bible. And I was really impressed with that because I didn't know anything about the Bible at that time, really.
I think that an instrumental part of our being baptized was the evangelistic series by Leighton Hawley. I think it brought new excitement into the church for both young and old.
And they welcomed us with open arms, children, noisy children and all.
One of the major things that started some years ago was the pastor came and said, in order to build your church, you're going to have to restart your lower division Sabbath school.
And our children were in the junior division. They had been largely in Sabbath schools by themselves because we've been in little churches, little groups. We've homeschooled them, and they said, we want to be in a church where there's lots of kids. And there weren't lots of juniors here, even though they had started some younger divisions. But we came here anyway, and we said, this is a mission. This is a good time to invite other kids and to do something. And the junior department started strong, and within 2 or 3 weeks, there were half a dozen kids.
The attendance is growing in this church. We're looking forward to the day even when we can't hold all the people in this church.
The friendliness in this church has really not just been a benefit to us in the church, but it has caused us to look out toward others, too. In public evangelism, we've recently had the Net 95 meetings with Mark Finley. This church has really stood behind me. In 2 days, Pastor Jim and I are leaving for Russia, and they have raised the money to send me to Russia.
There's need, we believe, for probably a church sometime in the future out in Belgrade, and we'd like to expand and plant a light out in that area also. So we believe that the future of this church is very bright.
The mountain of age and declining numbers for the Bozeman Church members has been turned into a monument of wisdom and strength for generations to come. These are members who would not and did not give up. The Bozeman Church is so important to us here because it is essentially the mother church for our academy. And the ties between church members and the academy remain strong. We face mountains at Mount Ellis Academy as well. But as we see elementary school enrollment expanding, and it is expanding, not only in Libby, but throughout the conference, prospects for Mount Ellis Academy improve immensely. We must do all we can to bring the spiritual and academic benefits of this fine school to more and more students. This academy is destined for great days ahead. The Superior Church on I-90 west of Missoula is a startling example of a small church that has grown by leaps and bounds in a dying town. About 5 years ago, the Superior area began to suffer a series of reverses associated with the local economy and job availability. But then the improbable happened. Local church members decided that a new church building was needed if they were to successfully continue to minister to their remaining neighbors.
When we arrived here about 14 years ago, we had, at that time, probably about 12 members. And then about a year later, one family moved away, and that left us with a membership of about 6. We did some friendship evangelism to start with by getting acquainted with our neighbors and making friends. We'd have them over for a little social evening once a week and have some cookies and punch. And we did this about 3 or 4 times over a period of about 3 or 4 years. And we had arrived at the place where our little church was just bursting at the seams. We had about 55 people that were attending each Sabbath. Of that 55 people, we had about 20 children. We were growing, and we needed more room. We began to search, and the Lord brought us some land right next door to our church. He actually arranged it so that the land didn't cost us anything. So now we had the land, but we only had $5,000 towards building a church. A church member from out of our conference said he would give $20,000 if the Montana Conference would match that, which they did, even though the town and the mill has gone and the town is going downhill, the church is coming up.
This is a map that was developed after an idea that we had to raise money to finish our church building. And we wrote a letter that was sent out specifically to our friends. I went down my own Christmas list. Our second idea was to go to the rest area, which is right up here, 10 miles east of Superior. The ladies in the church collectively baked over 200 dozen cookies for our 4th of July weekend drive out there. We were there for 4 days straight. And on that weekend, we brought in over, I think it was around $1,500 for the 4 days. But every penny accumulated to over, collectively from the rest area and from the letter fund, as we called it, over $12,000.
We had just finished the major part of renovating or finishing the interior of our church. We considered the Doug Batchelor series videos, and then we got a letter from Elder Parks saying that he had an evangelist available from Amazing Facts, but upon learning the price tag on it, our church in business session felt that it was just beyond our ability to do this, but we said we would hang out a fleece, and that is that we would offer to pay $1,000 if the conference would pick up the difference. Much to our happiness, they did. We brought up about 40 chairs, and we had not only the pews filled, but most of these chairs.
Creativity, commitment, and sharing of the gospel commission with neighbors have combined to make the once dying Superior Church a true monument to outreach and evangelism. Hamilton is a relatively small town where individual traditions run deep. Aside from its renown for medical research and luxury log cabin construction and export, Hamilton has become primarily a retirement community. The twin mountains of economic and demographic change loomed for members of the Hamilton Church. Attendance was good, and space was scarce. On this, there was agreement. But what of the future? Should the church be expanded? Should a new church be built? Or should members play it safe and hold on to what they had?
You've caught us today in our Sunday best. This is the new Hamilton Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's got about 14,000 square feet. If you step inside and talk to some of my members, they can tell you the real story of what's been happening.
As we saw every week, our church lobby being filled with folding chairs, we realized that something had to be done. Either we would have to build on to the present facility or launch out and build a new facility. The younger people were more anxious to do it. The elderly people were less anxious because they had put their lifeblood into the church. They built the church. They'd done an addition. They had seen that church grow to where it was. The decision was made at a church business meeting that if God wanted us to sell, he could sell that structure. And Pastor Randy was a very positive person, and he listened to both sides of the congregation.
Everybody's participated, from the children, the mothers. We've had electricians helped out and some other people who aren't even members of our church.
Even though many of the elderly people felt they would never see the day when they would be able to worship in this structure. And now it's getting really close to reality. We expect to move in by June, and we're really happy about that.
We're excited to get into our building as soon as possible because our plans are to start evangelistic meetings early next year and begin the work of filling up the new church.
Hamilton members today rejoice in their new completed sanctuary, which is becoming a monument to God's grace in this affluent community. When put to the test, God always removes even the most imposing mountains of indecision and creates from those mountains monuments to unity and growth. Our final mountaintop tour takes us north of Hamilton to Missoula, our largest congregation west of the Rockies. For years, this congregation had shown moments of outreach strength, but by and large had been in a slow growth draft. New families were flooding into the area, offering potential for a rich harvest. But the church seemed unable to muster its evangelistic fervor to meet the opportunity. But then the congregation discovered an effective tactic: regular public evangelism.
Our church is located right in the center of town. It's a busy place and easy access to the community, and we just added the satellite dish here this last year as a part of our outreach program, and looking forward to the Net 95 series and other outreaches using the satellite dish.
What was surprising to me was how many university students we had come to the meetings. I know that as a university student, you don't have a lot of time for anything other than your studies. We had about 4 people baptized as a result of the meetings who are students at University of Montana. So now we are trying to organize a student group to meet their needs and also to meet the needs of Adventist kids who, for some reason or another, don't go off to Walla Walla or Southern, but come here to school.
It worked out just as we had hoped it had, with some of the members from Layton's series continuing on and inviting their friends and family members into the Net 95 meeting.
My son Tom always went to the Nazarene Church with me and was quite faithful in attending. And once I started attending the meetings here at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I started telling him about them and how much I enjoyed those meetings and how I was acquiring a better knowledge of the Bible, and especially in the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel, and besides many other portions of Scripture in the Bible. And so he started coming with me, and then once he got started, why, he didn't miss any meetings either, and he eventually wanted to become baptized.
And the 35 baptisms are a great blessing to this church, and we hope that it just continues to blossom out as these members go out now and contact their friends and their family members, and our church continues to grow.
What a turnaround. And I might add, statistics show that during the past 3 years, all but 5 of the many new Missoula converts brought in through public evangelism have remained active in the church. Church members have conscientiously organized to befriend the new members, to invite them to their homes, not just 1 or 2 for spiritual guardianship, but 9 or 10 true friends. What a monumental example of turnaround in the thriving university town. We have only touched on some of the excitement that God has brought to Montana during the past 3 years. I could tell you of amazing developments in Billings, for example, where stewardship and tithing reached truly monumental proportions compared to 3 years ago. I believe God has indeed given us a mountainous land, not to impede our progress or slow the work, but to give us an even greater opportunity to glorify His name. for every mountain will in the end sing out in praise to God's grace as yet another monument to his limitless power poured out for our salvation.